There are people who seem utterly ordinary. They don't speak much, don't react loudly, don't try to prove anything. But behind that quietness lies a spirit as solid as stone in the storm of life. In a world where anger flares easily, where words are often weapons in petty battles, some choose to hold on to peace, like a small light in the middle of a stormy night, refusing to go out. Today's story is about someone like that. Not a sage, not a great teacher, just a quiet security guard, working every day in a building most people barely notice. But one drizzly morning, when a wave of anger suddenly crashed in, it was his calmness that taught a young man a lesson he would never forget. Let's listen. It was a drizzly Monday morning. The sky hung gray and heavy, mirroring the mood of the crowd rushing toward the downtown office building. Everyone moved as if swept up in the same familiar current. Be on time, meet the deadline, not a minute late. A young employee, just a few weeks into his new job, hurried toward the main entrance, his dress shirt soaked with rain, his face tense with frustration. Today was an important meeting, and he was nearly 10 minutes late. But right at the entrance, an older man in a security guard uniform raised his hand to stop him. "You forgot your entry badge. I'll need to verify your identity." The young man froze for a second, a flicker of irritation in his eyes. Then frustration turned into anger. "I left out my desk. Don't you see me come in here every day? Just let me through already." The guard remained calm. "I'm sorry, but rules are rules." That soft-spoken reply only fueled the young man's temper. He raised his voice, snapped, and even hurled a few insults. And yet, amid the storm of youthful anger, the guard stood firm, silent, steady, like a rock in a rushing river. The young man's harsh words echoed through the lobby. A few passers-by had begun to glance over, some with awkward concern, others with furrowed brows. But the middle-aged man, the security guard, stood perfectly still. No reaction, no anger, no lowering of his head, no argument. The more the young man spoke, the more agitated he became. His anger was like a fire being whipped by the wind. And every word the guard offered, gentle, calm, respectful, felt like cold water thrown onto the flames of his pride. But instead of calming him, it made him feel challenged. "Who do you think you are, stopping me like this? I work here. I have the right. You're just a security guard." Words like blades. Yet still, no change in the man's expression. No anger. No sadness. No pushback. Only a gaze, light as the clouds, yet deep enough to see right through the insults. In the middle of the storm, he stood like an old tree that had weathered many tempests. Moments passed. The young man began to breathe heavily, his voice losing the force it had earlier. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he felt deflated, disoriented by the guard's refusal to react the way he expected. Then, almost without thinking, he asked, "Why aren't you angry? I yelled at you. I insulted you in front of everyone. Don't you feel disrespected?" The man looked at him and gave a faint smile. Not the smile of someone pretending to be noble, but the kind of smile only those who've walked through many storms can truly understand. "I'm not angry because I didn't accept those words. They weren't meant for me, so I left them with you." That sentence, so simple, hit like a sudden wave. The young man froze, taking a few seconds to process it. Not everyone has the strength to stay silent when insulted. Not everyone has the courage to remain still when their pride is provoked. But this man, he hadn't just stayed calm. He had shown a kind of strength the younger man had never learned. The strength of mastering one's own mind. That calm presence. It was the very thing that made the young employee suddenly feel small. And perhaps, at last, ready to learn something truly important. The air in the lobby seemed to grow still. The young employee was no longer shouting. But the silence from the guard didn't feel like a victory. If anything, it felt like he had just lost a battle, won without words. Then his voice broke through the hush, this time not angry, but curious. "But I said some pretty awful things. How can you not be angry?" Most people would have snapped back. "Unless you don't feel anything at all." The guard shook his head gently. His eyes, kind and steady, looked at the young man as if seeing someone lost in an emotional storm. Then he replied, slowly, "It's not that I don't feel. I'm human too. I've been angry. I've been hurt. But today, I chose not to take what you gave. It's like when someone offers you a gift. If you don't accept it, the gift still belongs to them. Insults are the same. If I don't take them, they stay with the one who gave them." The young man stood frozen, not because the answer was too complex, but because it was so simple, so quiet, like a single drop of water falling onto the stormy surface of a lake within him. "Then what do you think I should do?" he asked, his voice softer now. The guard glanced out the glass doors, where the rain still fell gently. Then he looked back, eyes calm, voice low and clear. "You don't have to be perfect, but if you want peace, don't let someone else's emotions control your heart. People will get angry. They might try to hurt you with their words, but only when you choose to take it in does their anger become yours. Peace isn't something others give you. It's something you protect, something you keep." The young man said nothing. When had he started letting other people's moods decide his own? When did a single disagreement become enough to unravel him? Standing before him was a simple man. No title, no authority, and yet he held something the young man had never known. An inner strength that didn't need to shout. A calm that didn't need to prove anything. He looked at the guard, not just as a security worker anymore, but as a teacher, if only for a moment, and perhaps a mirror reflecting back a version of himself he no longer wanted to be. The rain outside kept falling, soft and steady, as if it were harmonizing with the silence, now surrounding the young man. He stood there, just beyond the office entrance, like someone who had just been awakened from a long slumber of ego and impulsiveness. He had never felt so small before, not because he'd been scolded, not because he'd been denied entry, but because for the first time in his life, someone had quietly reflected his inner self back at him, not with criticism, but with something far more powerful, unshakable calm. He began to think back, all the times when a cold look from his boss had ruined his entire day, all the careless words from friends that had kept him up at night. He had lived in a world where his emotions were pulled by outside forces, where every comment bruised his pride, and every disagreement stirred up storms in his heart. But the man standing before him had chosen stillness, not out of weakness, but because he had learned something deeper, that reactions are choices, not instincts. The young man lowered his head, not out of fear, but out of respect. I'm sorry," he said softly. "I was wrong. I had no right to take out my frustration on someone who did nothing wrong." The security guard smiled again, that same gentle smile, not the kind that scolds or preaches. Just a quiet nod, enough to forgive, and enough to encourage. "Emotions aren't bad, son," he said in a warm, steady voice. "But if you don't learn to control them, they become chains that hold you back your whole life. Staying calm isn't running away. It's knowing what deserves space in your mind, and what's better left behind." In that moment, the young man felt something lift inside him, a strange lightness. No more urge to defend himself. No more words to justify, only a quiet, growing gratitude. Because on that cold, rainy, and angry Monday morning, he'd received a lesson far more valuable than any corporate training could offer. A lesson in self-mastery and the quiet strength of a peaceful soul. That morning, the rain didn't stop falling, but inside the young man, something had quietly come to a halt. It wasn't just the anger, it was the ego that always needed to be right. Not just youthful impulsiveness, but the habit of letting emotions take the lead. He walked through the office doors, this time, not in a rush, not stepping over someone else's dignity just to ease his own frustration. He turned back, and for the first time, he smiled at the security guard, a smile filled with gratitude. From that day on, people noticed a change. He didn't snap as often. He stopped raising his voice when corrected, stopped fuming over little things. He didn't become perfect, but day by day, he became a more mature version of himself. And whenever emotions began to rise again, he would remember those simple words. If I don't accept it, the insult still belongs to the one who gave it. In life, we can't control what others say, but we can choose to protect our own peace. And sometimes, all it takes is one calm soul to quietly change another. Life is full of people who may hurt us with their words, But what truly matters isn't what they said. It's what we choose to carry in our hearts. Some respond with anger. Some choose silence. But only those who are strong from within can smile and walk past the noise of judgment. Remember this. Peace doesn't come from controlling the world around you. It comes from mastering your own mind. Every time you choose not to react to negativity, you create space for growth, for clarity, for strength. And who knows, maybe your calmness today will be the lesson someone else carries for the rest of their life. Thank you for listening to this story. May you always hold onto your peace, even in the middle of life's storms.